It took Google 7 years from the day they launched to a billion searches on a daily basis. And it took ChatGPT 3.5 like 2 months to get to where there was a billion people making inquiries every single day.
We are a startup, and our HR recruiting team is bogged up with work, right? 300 applications, resumes, and I had to read those things and So what I did was
I've had people who have left my organization and gotten jobs elsewhere, very, very good jobs elsewhere, simply because I gave them the opportunity to learn AI, and it's hard to find those people in the marketplace today who are really competent. And so if you're a coder, learn to create more value by taking advantage of these tools. If you're a graphics designer, learn to create more value by taking advantage of these tools. If you're a business owner, learn to create more value by taking advantage of these tools. And if I have the choice between a personal assistant who knows how to use AI and one who doesn't, I know who I'm hiring. And if I have a coder who knows how to use all these agentic systems to write code and one who just sits down and hacks away at a keyboard all day, I know who I'm hiring. Like, at the end of the day, I'm going to hire the person who knows how to leverage themselves with AI. The likely scenario is that you'll be replaced by someone who knows how to use AI.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the DataPedia show, and we have a special guest today. We have Jesse here on the show. For everyone, I'll just introduce myself. I'm Yogesh. I'm director here in Data Infra for Data and AI, and I will quickly let my guest introduce himself. Jesse?
Thanks, Rakesh. Thanks for having me on the show. So yeah, my name is Jesse Anglen. I am the CEO of Rapid Innovation and also the co-founder of another project we're creating called Rue. Both very, very focused in the AI space around digital labor and agentic systems, and basically trying to figure out how and what the world looks like in that next evolution of automation and value creation and work. And I've been in the tech space for a long time, probably maybe 20 years or something along those lines. As an entrepreneur, I've started a bunch of different companies. Rapid Innovation got started actually in the blockchain space. So we spent a lot of time in the blockchain space back before blockchain was cool. And then after blockchain was cool. And we started then in the AI space before AI was cool. And now we're hanging out in the AI space now that it is cool. So yeah, lots of fun. Always playing with all of the cutting edge and interesting technology that's out there.
Yeah. Thank you for introducing Jesse. And I still remember when you said when before AI was cool or before blockchain was cool. I still remember my early days in Microsoft when I was working, and we were a bunch of people there. We were trying to do some cool stuff in the hackathon, right? And we were working on a smart vehicle solution for non-smart vehicles, and before and AI was termed there, but again, we were way off. Starting from, like, let's say LLMs models or computation models we have today, right? We didn't have even the powerful NVIDIA tools that time, and I still remember, few days earlier we were discussing something in the office, and I was searching my Google Photos of the time, and I took a architecture diagram what I drew on the whiteboard, and it was written AI there, and I was like, oh my god. So
What year?
crazy.
What year was that? Out of curiosity.
It was 2016 or something, like 16, 17, 16.
Okay.
And it was written AI there, and I was like, what were we thinking about AI at that time?
Yeah.
Because
Well,
if you think about the thought process of AI now is very different from what we used to think, and it has changed. And I would say the paradigm shift in understanding AI and assimilation of AI by today's generation is way different from what we used to a few years ago. Yes, obviously, we due to the advent of LM models and the tools we have. But yeah, that's a little bit of anecdote where I remember from when you said before AI was cool.
Yes. I mean, it was interesting. I remember playing around with AI a long time ago. Like, I think the very first time I really started playing around with AI was probably in 2009, like
Hmm.
seriously. And
Hmm.
so I was a completely different job back then. I was in sales, and I wanted to create a handwriting bot that would
Uh-huh.
handwrite notes for me that I could send out to potential clients. And so I went the traditional method, but the problem is in the traditional method, just creating like a type font, every
Hmm.
single J looks exactly the same, right? And it can't look like that, right?
Yeah,
It
right.
has to look like handwriting, or else people would know that it was, or else people would know that it wasn't handwriting. And
Hmm.
so I created a little a handwriting agent. Just it wasn't, I mean, it was. I found some open source libraries and did some different stuff, and actually created something that would then go and handwrite. And it was terrible. I mean, it was so bad I couldn't use it, and I ended up finding another solution. But that was really where my journey in AI started, was creating that bot. I thought, you know what? If we can start doing labor
Hmm.
with artificial intelligence, and you can create
Hmm.
value, right? Like real
Hmm.
value creation, then the entire
Hmm.
world is going to change.
Hmm.
And yeah, it's funny thinking back to those days, because I had no idea what this would turn into, like none. Um,
Hmm.
it wasn't until probably 2019 that when I saw GPT-2,
Uh-huh.
where I realized that, oh my gosh, like they're figuring out how to actually make these systems intelligent. And if you can
Right.
create a synthetic intelligence that you can just
Hmm.
call an API and get intelligence back, then what could you
Hmm.
create? Like all of a sudden, like there were endless possibilities in my mind.
Correct.
And it was, yeah,
And
and it's been a wild ride since then.
yeah, it's been a wild ride, I would say, and still is a wild ride today,
Yes.
also, right? With all the, let's say, because when you talk about LLMs, only LLMs were okay. It was a very great step towards Gen AI, but again, only LLM was not good enough, right? You put then you because it started a lot of hallucinations, right? So when you put context plus LLM, then it became useful to more useful, I would say, to the general public. Then yes, then context you put, then you allow the rack system, and then you add, you add now so much so that recently the hype is about MCP. We'll come to that later on, but again, just trying to just sit down and assimilate the vastness of this ecosystem, how it goes so much vast in such a short time, right?
Yes. Dude, I was
That's
just reading.
crazy.
Did you read, it came out a bit ago.
Hmm.
But did you read Mary Meeker's, she put together a slide, actually a
Hmm.
lot of slides. I think it's like 400 or 350, 400 slides on AI
Hmm.
trends.
Uh-huh.
And it's fascinating, because she does better research than almost anyone I've ever heard of on the internet. And I
Hmm.
think this is her first report she's done since 2019. I can't even remember what
Hmm.
that one was about, but one of the things she said is she went through the numbers of how fast it took like Google to get to a billion searches monthly. So it took Google 7 years from the day they launched to get
Uh-huh.
to a billion, to get to a billion searches on a daily basis. And it took
Hmm.
ChatGPT 3.5 like 2 months to
Right.
get to where there was a billion people making inquiries every single day. And
Right.
it's just, everything has changed. Like I was thinking about this the other day. So think about this. When I first saw AI and I was fascinated
Mm.
by it and I thought it was intelligence, uh,
Mm.
I think the context window for AI back then was under 1,000 words. It
Right.
was, I
Mm.
think it was like 1,000 token context window, so like 750 words or something like that. Even
Correct. Correct.
3.5, so 2019 when 3.5 comes out,
Mm.
I want to say the 3.5, it was like a 4,000 token context window. And I think about that today because I have prompts, like the majority of my prompts that I
Mm.
use today are probably 10,000 tokens at least, maybe 15,000
Mm.
tokens.
Mm.
And and the entire context window of the first AI we were using was, a total of what, 1,500 words or
So going ahead a little bit. I'll come to agentic AI, part. But again, before that, if we talk about a little bit of on evolution of AI, right? We're talking about evolution of AI, but again, uh, if you look at, like, there are a lot of theories on, let's say, AGI, like, or I think singularity and all, it is far fetched. I'm not sure. I'm not a very big fan of that word, but I'm hopeful. I'm not saying I'm not hopeful, but I'm hopeful. But again, um, with the until we have, I think we have the quantum computing replacing the traditional computing. I won't be so much so. What to say? I own buy-in if anybody would say that, hey, singularity would be in 5 years, 10 years, or something like that. What do you think on that?
the truth is, I pay attention to quantum computing today about as much as I used to pay attention, as about as much as I pay attention to like blockchain today, which is, I used to
Mm.
be really interested in it, but I'm so focused. So here's what I think. I do think that
Mm.
quantum computing, when it comes, is
Mm.
going to probably bring about probably as big of innovation to the world
Mm.
as AI has. But here's something that I know. If you
Mm.
go back and listen to Steve Jobs talk about AI back in the 90s,
Mm.
or you listen to any big influencer a long time ago talk about how this technology that we're building is going to change the world. There's those people having these conversations in 1950 about what AI
Mm.
is going to do, for the world. What I find to be really fascinating is they had no idea. None. Like they were all making guesses and all of them were
Yeah,
wrong.
right.
You can
Mm.
hear these little, like, their minds try to like wrap itself around
Mm.
like what this is going to look like, and they just can't do it. And I feel like that's probably the same thing with quantum computing. Like we'll get it figured out and it's going to open up possibilities that we couldn't have dreamed about.
Mm.
um, but it's probably not going to be what we think. It's going to be something else, in the same way that AI wasn't what we thought. It's something else. And I think even like blockchain would be another technology that turned into something else. Cloud is another, the internet is something else. I mean, go back to the 80s or the 90s and watch people talk about the internet, what they thought it was
Mm.
going to turn into, what they thought people were going to do with it. They were just
Mm.
wrong. I mean, just like our imaginations can't really understand what innovation looks like.
Mm.
And we don't understand what exponential growth looks like. We kind of can't understand Moore's law. And so when it comes to technology, human minds just really struggle to grasp anything outside of about a year or 2 or 3 years from now, and even then I think we struggle with it. So those are my thoughts on quantum computing. Like I do think it's going to make a big impact when we get it figured out.
Mm.
I wonder if it'll be slower than we think, or different than we think, though.
Yeah, right. And why I brought this up is because, as far as I'm impressed with computing powers of NVIDIA or coming up, recently, uh, I still think that we have, with LLMs in place, we have just scratched the surface of what's possible from an AI standpoint, right? Because Yes, we figure out that okay, the human brain works through neural networks, and what that is what we are trying to do with LLM models, with deep learning and all those things. But again, the computing power, or let's say self-teaching and then self-awareness, right? All those things needs huge computing power, and huge computing power comes with a huge expenditure, right? There's a huge price tag to that, right? So that's when again the debate comes into play. Okay, are we really making use of the AI power versus is it the computing power? Is it really impacting the environment, and then so on and so forth? The debate goes on, right? So my
Well,
thought process was from that standpoint. Yeah.
dude, here's something interesting to think about. In 2018, ChatGPT 1, right, when it generated a token versus today using ChatGPT 4.1 mini, let's say, guess how much the cost has reduced to produce a single token in GPU power. Like, it's insane, the percentage drop in token cost and power usage. It is 1 million times. It's 1,000x. So what is that? 1,000x. That's going to be a 100,000%, right? Am I doing
Mm-hmm.
the math right? If I added enough zeros, I think so. It's 100,000% cheaper to generate a token today
Mm-hmm.
than it was in 2018. Like, we're talking 7 years, and we
Uh-huh.
figured out 1,000% cost saving or 100,000% cost savings. Like, it's hard to even wrap your mind around that, right? I mean, if it used to cost $1 to generate a token, it now
Mm-hmm.
costs like like fractions and fractions and fractions of a penny. And so if that
Mm-hmm.
keeps going, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I think on some levels you're going to get token generation that's borderline free as far as
Right.
the efficiency goes. The question is whether or not they can increase the intelligence while decreasing the power, right? Because that's what they've been doing. I mean, if you go someday, the people who are listening to this, go
Mm-hmm.
find ChatGPT 1 and talk to it. Or
Right.
ChatGPT. You can't really even talk to ChatGPT 1. You kind of can, but you almost can't.
Mm-hmm.
Go talk to ChatGPT 2 and just have a
Mm-hmm.
conversation. It is
Mm-hmm.
so dumb that it'll blow your
Mm-hmm.
mind at how stupid it is, right? And somehow
Okay.
we have decreased the cost of token generation
Mm-hmm.
like in an insane amount, while increasing the intelligence to the point where, to be quite honest, most of these models are smarter than a lot of people that live in this on this planet. You know,
Right.
they have more ability to reason through problems. They've got a better memory. They're just smarter than most people, or not most people,
Mm.
but a lot. I would say they're smarter than 25% of the people that are alive today. That's insane to me, the amount of progress we've made. I'm really excited for what the future looks like, just simply because of that.
Mm. But one more thing that I'll go this first, and then we go to agent AI. So one more thing is regarding computation models, or the learning models. I think at some point now, we have hit a wall, or we have hit a what to say. I would say blockage where we don't have any more training data, and we are running out of training data, and then we have to come up with many, let's say, innovative ways to make sure that our I saw a word called IaaS, was previously is what infrastructure as a service, now is intelligence as a service. So
Yes.
so when we give this one, so let's say, for example, OpenAI came out with something reasoning, right? So
Yep.
for this one, for so reasoning tools, then we have again your this one, your agent AI is with where scaffolding happens, right?
Yep.
So the models are as intelligent as how we feed the data. right? So right now, we talk about AI, implementation of AI in everywhere, and training models and all those things. But again, I think what people miss is at a very very your foundation is AI is as good as how you feed the data to your model, right?
Yep.
And if we ask to any organization, right, when we talk about, let's say they say, hey, we want to implement AI or here in our infrastructure, and I would say, is your data ready, right? So, what do you think, like in this regard?
So I have a little bit of a different perspective on this than some people do. So the question I think that should be asked is, what is intelligence? Is intelligence the ability to regurgitate information? Like, is it the ability to know things? If
Mhm.
that is intelligence, which I don't think it is, then AI's already got that covered, right? Because for the most part, AI knows everything, like everything that there is to know. It has consumed all the world's intelligence. But what's interesting is that it hasn't made AI smarter than you. It's just made
Mhm.
AI know more than you, right? And
Mhm.
it's kind of like, and so we hit that roadblock, and then we came up, and then people started doing prompt engineering where they were making the model think, and they're like, oh, this is interesting. Like, if you make the model think through a problem, it gets more intelligent. What's interesting is it doesn't know more. It really never knew more. It just became more intelligent
Mhm.
because you gave it a process for thinking. And so
Mhm.
that got me thinking about what intelligence is, which actually brought me to a
Mhm.
different thought process, which, because why does intelligence matter? I mean, at the end of the day, the only reason that
Mhm.
one human being is interested in another human being's intelligence is because it allows for value creation of some sort.
Mhm.
And so if you think about, Einstein was really intelligent. Well, really, Einstein came up with a way to look at the world that created a lot of value for people. It also created the atom bomb, which was kind of a bummer, but he created, like in some ways, how we think about physics, and a lot of the technology we have is based on his thinking about things, right? Um, and so you start thinking through why intelligence matters. It matters because of value creation. So then you start thinking about value creation, right? And what is it that creates value? And I've spent a lot of time thinking about this because I'm building right now an agentic system, or actually I'm
Mhm.
raising money for it at the moment. We'll go
Mhm.
public in about a month, but and the entire purpose of this platform is to do work, right? To create value. So you need to be able to hire these agents. They need to be able to come into your company and onboard just like a human would, understand what their job is just like a human would, and then do that job just like a human would, right? And so I've thought a lot about, like, why that's important. Well, at the end of the day, let's say that, um, and back up a little bit. There are four things that create value. There are
Mhm.
four pillars of value creation. So number one is intelligence. Like, you have to be smart enough to
Mhm.
do something. If I hired you and I gave you a task to do, and you were just too stupid to do it, you could not create
Mhm.
value, right?
Correct.
But let's
Mhm.
let's pretend that you're the smartest guy on planet Earth.
Mhm.
Like, there's literally no one smarter than Rakesh.
Mhm.
And so I hire you and I give you a task, but you have no memory. You have no context. You
Mhm.
don't know where you're working. You don't know what you're doing. You don't know why you're doing it. You don't know how to do it, right? Because you have no context. You have no memory. Once again, you're going to completely fail at that task. And so then you think, okay, well, I need intelligence and I need memory. Fantastic. I will, not that's all I need. Well, that's not all you need for value creation. The third thing that you need for value creation is the ability to actually use tools. Because let's pretend that you're the smartest guy in the world. Let's pretend that you've got the best memory of anyone in the world. Like, there's no one better than you. And I say, hey, I need you to go and do a bunch of graphics design for me. And by the way,
Sure.
you're not allowed to use a computer. You're not allowed to use a
Mhm.
pencil. You're not even allowed to use a piece of paper. No tools. You still fail, even though you're the smartest guy in the world, even though you have the best memory of anyone in the world. If you don't have access to the tools that you need to create value, you can't. Now, with those three things, you can always create some value. But the last pillar is process, right? And that
Mm-hmm.
is what differentiates the top performers from the bottom performers inside any value creating entity, i.e., a company. Is what process do they use? Oftentimes, you'll hire people, and I've hired thousands of people over my career,
Mm-hmm.
and they're really smart. They have great memories. Great. They've got a great memory. They're great at using the tools, but they're so disorganized on their process that they can't perform nearly as well as somebody else who has a really really good process, even though they might not be as smart. And so when you start thinking about AI as a synthetic value creator, which is ultimately what people are trying to create, right? How do we take
Mm-hmm.
what human beings do seemingly naturally, which is create value? You've got a company, and you do things on a daily basis that create value for others. So do I.
Yeah.
So does
Right.
so does my wife. So does even a child, if you think about it, right?
Correct.
Like when they're playing
Mm-hmm.
in the playground.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so when I started thinking about that, and I started thinking about intelligence, and intelligence, memory, tool use, and process being the thing that actually creates value, and you start having a holistic view of AI, what you realize is that in the beginning of AI creation, people were trying to create AI that knew a lot because they thought knowing a lot made you smart, and they thought that if you were smart you could create value. What they
Mm-hmm.
discovered is that they had a synthetic intelligence that knew a lot, but it really could not create
Mm-hmm.
value. So then they're like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
well, we need to give it the ability to to know what to remember things. So they started expanding the context window. RAG became a thing. Like all of these different tools start growing, so that now this model that knows a lot
Mm-hmm.
can now remember a lot of things, and it still was just lacking things. So then they put in tool use, and they're like, well, maybe if we can start training tool use into these models so they know how to use tools, then that'll create something that allows for value creation. And it's still kind of missing the mark. And I think the reason behind that is, I think what we have created up to this point is a know-it-all tool using entity with a lot of memory, right? And you can even hook it up to processes. But what we really haven't
Right.
figured out yet is that ability to reason like people reason. Now it's
Mm-hmm.
good. I mean, I heard a guy say the other day, a CEO of a large AI company, say the other day that if all AI development stopped today, it would still, over the course of the next 5 years, eliminate 25% of the jobs globally, because the AI is
Mm-hmm.
currently capable of doing 25% of the lower, kind of entry level positions that exist on the planet today. That's zero more innovation, and we've already probably fundamentally destroyed the entire global job market.
Right.
And we're
Right.
still
I
working
had
on making improvements.
Yeah, even I, because in I think in Bill or I think in the conference for Meta, for we're talking to the Facebook CEO, Satya, the Microsoft CEO. He said that 30% of the coding in Microsoft is done through AI, right? So it matches with what you said now, that the 35%, if let's say, for example, if we stop AI development today, and it can still remove 35% of the job
Well,
market. And
you know what's funny
yeah,
about you
sure. Go
saying
ahead.
that?
Mhm.
Like on this
Mhm.
other monitor that I have over here,
Mhm.
I I needed an application this morning, and I
Mhm.
did a Google search to see if I could find it. I couldn't. And so I'm building it, right? Like
You're
it's
right.
easier for me if it's going to take longer than it will take to write a product requirements document. It's
Mhm.
easier for me to build my own custom app than it is for me
Mhm.
to go find an application to go and use.
Right.
Like
Yeah, yeah, right.
that's an insane world that we live in.
So
And
I'll give you an example. So what I was doing is, we are a startup, and our HR recruiting team is bogged down with works, right? So I was trying to hire some consultants over, and I got some 300 applications or resumes, and I had to read those things and screw. So what I did was I just opened up the cursor and I just created an app which would read from this particular folder, and extract to me in a CSV format on all the informations, and I have put some context saying that okay, I need this is criteria for eligibility, and find me these candidates, and it did really. So it was, instead of like like you just said, instead of finding a tool which will do those things for me in that's I think in much lesser time, I can create a tool, get the result, and move on.
Yep.
Right. So,
Yeah. Because it takes less time
so
to build your own software. And what's crazy is I've got, do you have a technical background? Like, have you written code before and stuff?
yes.
Yes. So
Not extensively. Not
yes,
extensively.
that's me,
I
me
was
too.
into,
Like I have,
yeah,
I have
I was
some
in product
experience,
management. Yeah,
right?
but yeah.
Yeah. I have people on my team who have
Mhm.
never written a line of code in their life ever, not even HTML. Like they've never done any coding, and they are
Okay.
building their own simple applications to help them with their job because it is, if you understand how to tell the machine that you want to build a certain app, it's as easy as
Right.
just understanding the logic, right? And who's best
Right.
at knowing what needs to be done more so than the person who's trying to do the job, right? And so
Correct.
like
Correct.
I've got there's a few people on my marketing team and a few people on my sales team. They don't even wait
Mhm.
around for the developers to show up and help them create tools and do different things. They just go do it themselves because they're never going to be used in production. It's fine. They're just personal
Correct. Yeah.
agents that they're
See.
building to help them. It's
Yeah.
like
Right.
building your own
Right.
personal assistants.
Exactly.
And I think it's
Exactly.
crazy that someone who knows nothing about writing code can go
Yeah.
and create an AI agent that will do real valuable work for them today. Like that's a real thing.
Correct.
It takes about a day to probably onboard yourself and learn how to do it, or
Yes.
less.
Absolutely. That's what I did.
Yeah.
Anyway, coming to the big thing now. I, I think for our audience, we really need to do this. Uh, when does I still and I use I'm not saying I'm an expert in AI, but again, AI tools I use on a daily basis. I talk to my folks here, developers, consultants, my customers, clients. But again, still, I get I don't know, sometimes like a dilemma or a confusion when to define, okay, at this point, it's not an AI agent anymore. It's an agentic AI. Or at this point, this is still AI agent, not an agentic AI. So, as an expert in here, can you tell for our audience when
What the
does it
difference
become an
is.
agentic AI? No, I don't
So
want a difference. I
yeah,
don't want difference.
yes.
I want like hey, simple word. If is this is what an AI agent looks like, then agentic AI is this.
Yes.
In
So
your own word.
here's
It's
here's here's how I would define that.
yeah.
I think that so if I go and I build a tool and it has a system in which an like singular an
Mm-hmm.
AI agent is helping
Mm-hmm.
me to perform some kind of work. Like yesterday, I built something just super simple where I wanted an AI to go through a CSV list and reorganize it for me. Right. And so
Mm-hmm.
I created the agent and I gave it the CSV and it went in and it reorganized that list. And it really can only do one thing, right? It can reorganize
Right.
lists the way that I told it to reorganize lists.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I would consider that an AI agent, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the other day I was working with my marketing team. And actually, I'll use a different example. So I'm doing fundraising for this other product that we're launching, and
Mm-hmm.
I had a list of 20,000 investors that I needed to figure out who I wanted to call through. Right,
Mm-hmm.
it's one of the big dilemmas in fundraising is you get these big lists of investors, and you can either like try to reach out to everybody, or it's a hard thing, right? It's a lot of work, and so they'll put teams of interns on it. And I thought, do I want to go hire a bunch of interns and have them start calling through this list and figure out who's qualified and who's not, and doing the research? What have they invested in? What's their investment thesis? And I thought, no, 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 like I'm not going to do that. And so I sat down, and I created the logic for an agentic system. And in this agentic system, there are 35 AI agents. Each of those AI agents are communicating with each other, right? So there's an
You
agent,
said
there's a
35,
team.
right?
There's 35 agents in the
35.
system.
So for my
Yes.
audience, I'll just get the number right again. 35.
Yes. Well, that's not the most. I have systems that have over 100 agents that work on a single task,
Right. Mhm.
or a single piece of work. It's more complex stuff. But here's the thing:
Mhm.
a system, in my mind, becomes agentic when you start combining agents together, and those agents actually begin to reason not only with, like, within their own context of what they're doing, but they start reasoning with each other and helping each other create a better outcome. And so I'll just run you through the logic. Is it's super simple logic for this VC outreach tool. All it does is, I've got a research team. I think the research team, there are 6 agents. The first agent just, all it does is it just researches stuff. So you give it information about a VC, like a LinkedIn profile or a name or a phone number, and it tries to find everything it can about that agent or that person on the internet, everything. And so every deal they've ever invested in, their website, everything. Once all that information comes in, it's given to a data analyst. That data analyst figures out, what information do we need? And so it runs through all the information and it compiles a brief of all the information they need. And then it continues down that line until the research is done. And then that is then
Mhm.
passed to another agent, a set of agents that understands the pitch deck and the value proposition and everything about the company that we're building. And then it takes and looks at all of the information about that VC, and it says, okay, based
Mhm.
on the past 1 year worth of investments they've made, their website, their LinkedIn, their investment thesis, and everything else, would they be a good fit for a call? And
Oh.
and that team of agents is determining that. And then if that is true or not true or whatever, all that information is there. It's given to another set of agents that goes and reasons through some stuff, builds a couple of outreach messages, and then puts all of this into a CSV file for me. And
Mm.
so that system with all of those agents is agentic because those agents will communicate with each other. Like sometimes the research agents will pass something down to the next stage and the other agent
Mhm.
will reject it and go back to
Mhm.
that research agent and say, like, I'm sorry, like, you're giving me this, but it's not what I need, because this is what I need from you in order to do A,
Mhm.
B, or C. And so then that other agent will go back out and refine the data that they're putting together, the brief that they're putting together. And so that
Mhm.
that to me is when a system goes from being an AI agent that is doing something for you to an agentic
Mhm.
system where you're really taking advantage of digital labor, right? Where you have
Mhm.
a team of agents that are working together towards an end goal of doing something valuable.
So it was very interesting when you said about agentic AIs, right? When it does become from an AI agent to agentic AI, right? So when it starts talking to each other and then communicating, like for example, the example you gave about a research team setting down a particular data, then the next particular agent, it goes back and say, hey, this is not the data that we wanted, and you go ahead and search again and then get us the data again. So when they start working together as a team for the common good, then and the common goal, I would say, then that's where I think the agentic AI's actual work or impact comes into the picture, right? And you talked about the labor thing, agent labor thing. I heard about this very boldly and in one of the keynote addresses in Sequoia Capital's recently held AI summit, and they were very very clear on that one that hey, right now all about we are all about, you know, labor agents, right? So where you you make sure that, you know, the outcome that you want from a particular task is not just in the context of a particular AI, but like you said, you had to use 35, but it is not even close to the highest number of agents that you have used to make your task complete task, right? And I was talking to my my HR, HR head, and one day about the recruitment process, and I asked her, "What is that you need, the most now?" He said, "I want 3 or 4 recruiters to work with me on recruitment." I told her, "What if I give you an agent or AI agentic AI, which will for check the resource requirements, talk to all the departments, get the requirements, post a LinkedIn post for you, get the resume sorted out for you, and then schedule meetings, or sorry, interview schedules, and then also get the feedback, and then even roll out the offer for you." So, like, okay, what's the catch? And like, no, there's no catch. There's no catch. Just that, we have to be very clear with the requirements, and also with what tools we use and how we design it, right? That's all.
Yep.
This about agentic AIs, and I think with agentic AI coming to the picture, uh, I'll pull in the very the hot thing coming up now, the MCPs, right? I just still did not get half of it. I'm very honest, because I don't know. In my mind, still, I think that it's a little overhead for me now. Because if I want to do a simple task here and there, I don't think MCP is needed for me.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but what do you think? You tell me.
So, I mean, I think that I think that model context protocol is probably was one of the missing pieces. Remember when we talk about the intelligence stack that
Yeah,
create, or
right, right,
the stack that creates value, one of them is the ability to use tools. And
right.
really all model context protocol is, if you just look at it from a really high level, is
Mhm.
it's a standard, right? So
Correct.
like any
Yes.
sort of like HTTP or any sort of standard that says
Correct.
if a model is going to use a tool, he's going to
Hmm.
do it like this. And that's all it
Hmm.
is.
Hmm.
And so what that does is it allows
Hmm.
people to start training their
Hmm.
models on how
Hmm.
to use tools, because no, even if it's a tool they've never seen before, if they know how to use the tool, because there's a standard on how you use every tool, then all of
Hmm.
a sudden models can get smarter and they have more access to tools. So I'll give you some examples, like really simple, stupid examples. It would be
Hmm.
like right now I'm building that app I was telling you about earlier, and I've got
Hmm.
2 MCP servers that I'm using while I do it. So one of them is called Context 7,
Hmm.
and all it is they have created a database, and they maintain a database of all of the up to date documentation on everything. And when I say
Hmm.
everything, like if you're using Open Router or Perplexity, or you're using
Hmm.
QuickBooks, or you're using anything, it has all of the developer docs ready.
Hmm.
And so when a model is going to implement a new feature, instead
Hmm.
of just guessing on what the
Hmm.
implementation looks like based on its memory, which is probably out of date,
Hmm.
it'll make a call to the using model context protocol. It'll make a call to their database and say, "Hey, I'm now implementing Open Router in my
Hmm.
application, and I need to know the latest documentation." And
Hmm.
so it pulls in the latest documentation and then implements that piece of code. Or I have another one that is a task manager that I'm using, right? So you give it a product requirement document and it turns that product requirement document into tasks. And then it helps the coding agent stay on task because it can always talk to the task manager in order to know what it's doing. So those would be simple examples where it helps a model connect to an API and make those API calls, right? But there's other things you can do with Model Context Protocol that is interesting. For instance, you can build your own custom servers, Model Context Protocol server, that has a piece of code running. And so let's say that you need an agent to be able to do something really specific. Like for instance, on my marketing team, we built an agent that an agentic system that has like 20 different agents in it that helps my content creation team write YouTube scripts. So it does all the research. It looks at social media. It figures out what's trending. It figures out what people are interested in. And then it puts together a YouTube script for them. So they can go and look at it and they don't have to start from a blank page. And so inside that agentic system, there are no external calls, meaning you were not using Model Context Protocol, but we took that agentic system and we turned it into an MCP server. So now you can have an agent call an agentic system. And so you can have agentic systems buried inside of other agentic systems and so forth and so forth to increase the intelligence, right? And it becomes like a tool in the same way that like, that you would hop onto Microsoft Teams and you'd hit one of your team members and say, say you hit your head of marketing and say, hey, I need a report on X. Well, he's probably not going to sit down and do that, right? Because he has another process underneath of him where he's got three people that he's going to hop on a call with and say, hey, listen,
right.
This person is right. And so ultimately all Model Context Protocol really is it gives the agent the ability to use tools at a very, very high level. Because the old way of doing that was that you actually had to get the agent or the agentic system to make the correct API call, which means they have to send the correct data. And then when they get that data back, they have to do the right things with it. And so with this, they can natively inside the model train them on how to actually make those calls. And then all I have to do, let's say I've built an app, right? And I want people to be able to talk to that app with their AI agents. I can go and take all of my documentation and my APIs and all that stuff, and I can create an MCP server for my app that I created, and then you can go and put that on like, what is the big one? Agent Foundry maybe, or something like that. I'm trying to remember there's a big MCP server database. You go stick it there, and then anyone who wants to use your application with their agentic system can just go and grab that MCP server, and then when they have that and their agent calls it, it knows how to talk to your APIs. And it knows how to use the tool. And so if you start thinking about how that fits in that stack of four things, where you've got intelligence, memory, and tool use, when you start giving agents the ability to start using any of the tools that us humans can use, and you start and you build the orchestration in, meaning you could also say, here's a database of all of the tools you have access to. Then the agent itself can start being more intelligent about what it's going to do. For instance, and this is the simplest version of the more complex version of MCP tool use. Let's say you go get the Gmail MCP server. So think about the different API calls you can make in Gmail, right? You can send an email. You can you can read an email. You could delete an email. You can organize an email. You can label an email. You can do all this different stuff, right? Those are all different API calls that you could make if you wanted to handwrite them. Well, if an agent knows how to use MCP, which they do, and you have that server that has all that functionality, instead of explicitly telling your agent, this is what I want you to do, it can reason through what the task is, and then it can start making decisions about what tool it's going to call inside that MCP server. So I could say, hey, Rakesh said he was going to send me an email. Has he done that yet? If he hasn't, can you shoot him over an email and tell him that he needs to send me that information?
Mm-hmm.
And then if he doesn't get back to me today, can you send him another reminder tomorrow? Right. So you tell an agent that. The agent then looks at the tools it has access to and it goes, oh, I can read Jesse's email. So it reads my email. It's like, oh, I don't see an email from Rakesh. So then it says,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I better send him an email. So then it
Mm-hmm.
drafts an email, which is something you can do. That's another API call. It
Mm-hmm.
sends the email, which is another API call. And then, maybe it has access to another MCP tool to schedule a follow-up task if nothing happens. And so it says, okay, schedule a task for myself for tomorrow. And then it runs through and it's starting to actually use tools. So a single agent becomes much more effective. Also, when you start thinking about an agentic system where you have single agents with access to tools, then you give them other agents with access to other tools, and
Mm-hmm.
they're kind of working as a team and they can communicate back and forth to each other. Even if this agent doesn't have access to do something, he can ask this agent to do it. And then this agent will go use access to their tools, do the work, bring it back to this agent. Then that agent
Mm-hmm.
will do what it needs to do with it. And so you can start building much more complex and useful value creation systems when you start really using tools. And that's why MCP is really cool. The other one that people don't talk about that I think is probably going to be as revolutionary is A2A, which
Mm-hmm.
Google came up with, which is the agent to agent protocol. So they're
Um,
standardizing how agents interact with each other so that when you get two agents talking to each other, you don't get the miscommunication or the hallucinations or other things that happen. And you can natively train them. When you go speak to another agent, this is how you do it.
correct,
Um,
correct, correct.
and so I think,
Just like we had the, let's say, TCP protocol, very at a very rudimentary level, right?
yes.
So that so that every kind of router and any kind of they can talk to
Yep.
in
It's
one.
it's exactly like that. It's exactly
Yeah.
like that. It's absolutely no different than that. You're
Yeah.
just doing it for agents, to be able to hit APIs and get data, or hit another agent and get data.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's really the big thing about MCP. Like,
Mm-hmm.
if you don't, people, I think everyone on the internet is trying to explain what they are, and they're being so complex, they're confusing the daylights out of people who don't know what they are, because they're not any different than just a protocol that allows one agent to access tools. That's all they
Yeah,
are.
yeah. I think most of the videos I've looked into, they dive into how to configure them, or very technically, right? Rather than explaining the value it's bringing to the table,
Yes.
and also what pain point is solving, right? What is it solve? What problem is it solving? Rather than focusing
Yes.
on that, they are most focusing on, let's say, hey, how to configure the MCP server. Hey, nobody wants to know how to.
Well,
Somebody,
what's the
some
point of
IT
doing the
tool
work until
to.
you understand how it's going to benefit you?
Yeah, right, right. So the value proposition is so important here. That yes, understanding the technology, how to set up, it's important. But again, like you said, we have to understand first on what problem it is solving for you. Yeah, if or rather, a very rudimentary question: is the problem need to be solved, right? So, so that's where you come back. But again, it reminds me of a project that we are doing right now. So India is also going towards lot of this AI revolution, trying to jump to the bandwagon, and then not trying to miss the bus, right?
Yep.
And the government is also trying to create an ecosystem to make sure that startup or the young innovators are able to make use of the compute free computes the government provides, right? The ministry is trying to help a lot, and there are some computation models were coming up, like Bharat AI, and in very niche areas like I think medical science and all those things. But again, these are not evolved as OpenAI, Llama, or Claude, or any other big giants, right? But again, India is also going towards a paradigm shift on data privacy and all those things, like because we have already got data privacy like GDPR, which hit a little bit long back, and then India is going to act called DPDP, okay, Data Privacy and Protection Act, personal data privacy for personal data or something like that. Okay, I forgot the name. So DPDP Act, and we're building an accelerator or an small app where we were trying to say, hey, okay, these are the questionnaires, and you have around, say, let's say around 30 questions which you need to answer as an enterprise, and it will tell you where are you at compliance level with the sections of this particular act or particular regulation, right? And then you also have next action which you can do is you can take act you can go ahead and let the agents work to correct those areas where you the compliance is broken, right? So I'm thinking of here about agentic AI's use, right? And because if you look at it, uh, let's say there is a problem with how your data quality works, or how your, let's say, how your data retention policy works, all those things. uh, I had to meet a lot of people to do, or I hired a lot of people to correct all those things. But if I have an agent, like you said, right, if I have a bunch of agents who will do the work for me, and whom I don't need to train them on the act, or I don't need to tell them, hey, go and read the act, go and read the sections of the regulations, and then understand it, and then try to correct your infrastructure in accordance with the compliance. Rather than that, I'll just design the agentic AI which will do the work for me. Like, it has already got the knowledge of the act, and also it knows where it is broken. Go and fix it. Right?
Yeah.
So yeah, so I think agentic AI with MCP and everything, it's the future now. And I think we're running out of time. But again, last question for me, and for my audience, would be, what do you think, from a person who is so closely working with all the things that AI can do for humanity, right now, what do you think, the focus for young innovators here now, right now, or young entrepreneurs should be? What their focus should be if they want to develop an AI model, or just go to the application layer and then make use of the AI models that we have, right? What do you think should be the fundamental thing that we use? If you think both should be, both are important to work on models plus application layer, that's also okay. But what do you think is more important, or are they equally important to concentrate on?
I mean, I think they're probably equally important to concentrate
Mm-hmm.
on. Um, Here's the thing that I've been telling everyone who works for me, right? Um, the end goal of every entrepreneur, every company, almost on some levels, every person on earth, especially if you're in business, right? Not necessarily on the consumer side of things, but if you're in business, the purpose is to create value. It's not more complicated than that, right? Like you start a grocery store where you sell groceries. down the street. The idea is to make it close to people so they can show up and buy your groceries, and that's valuable to them because they need groceries. I mean,
Excellent.
the guy who puts petrol in your in your car, like that has the petrol station. It doesn't matter what you're doing. Is the
Mm,
point? Like nothing. You pick up garbage on the side of the street. You're trying to make a more beautiful place for people to walk by. Like you are creating value for those people who are walking by or whoever doesn't have to deal with the garbage. Like it doesn't matter at what level you sit in the value creation stack. That is the
mhm,
purpose. And I think that we oftentimes as human beings get so wrapped up in what we do that we forget why we're doing it.
absolutely. Mhm,
And so when you lose sight of that, you become a
mhm,
coder, right?
mhm,
And you forget that the purpose of coding is to create value for somebody.
mhm,
Or you become a marketer and you forget that the purpose of doing marketing is to show value to somebody or create value
mhm,
to for somebody, et cetera, et cetera. You can go through it, every single department, every single company on planet Earth.
mhm,
And what I know to be true is that when I take someone and I help them understand that the end goal is value creation, and you ought
mhm,
to be using these tools to very specifically try to become the biggest value creator that you can,
mhm,
then those people are successful, whether they're employees that work for somebody or whether they're CEOs that run their own companies or whatever it happens to be, because at the end of the day, that's what matters. And so I always tell people, like, leverage your ability to create value wherever that happens to be.
mhm.
You should be finding and using the different tools that are available to do that. Or, and if you can't find them, maybe you have something you can then go and build, and that tool that you go and build will allow other people to create more value, and then you can be an entrepreneur and go start a business, which I wouldn't necessarily recommend to everyone because it's not for the weak of heart. But uh, that is ultimately, that is what I would say is the advice that I give most everybody. And so if you're a coder, learn to create more value by taking advantage of these tools. If you're a graphics designer, learn to create
Mhm.
more value by taking advantage of these tools. If you're a business owner, learn to create more value by taking advantage of these tools. And in order to do that, you have to know what they are. No one's going to educate you because honestly, education doesn't really exist for this stuff yet. It'll happen.
Right.
But be curious. Go spend time paying attention. Go read books, read articles, watch YouTube videos. However you consume information, bring it in, learn the stuff, go play with it, test it, and learn to create value. And at the end of the day, if you do that, you will be successful. It's the people who just want to be coders that are going to get taken out. And I've told everyone at my company this, and
Mhm,
and actually I've got another meeting on Wednesday to tell everyone again.
mhm,
I'm not going, like, you are likely in the next year not to be
mhm,
replaced by an AI. Like it's going to be hard for people to build AI to the place where you can be replaced completely, your entire job.
mhm,
And most companies are, I mean, some are doing it. I have fully replaced people with agentic systems. So I'm not saying
mhm.
it can't happen, but that's not the likely scenario. The likely scenario is that you'll be replaced by someone who knows how to use AI. And
Yes,
and the truth is, if
absolutely.
I
Yes,
if I have the choice between a personal assistant who knows how to use AI and one who doesn't, I know who I'm hiring. And if I
correct.
have a coder who knows how to use all these agentic systems to write code and one who just sits down and hacks away at a keyboard all day, I know who I'm hiring. Like at the end of the day, I'm going to hire the person who knows how to leverage themselves with AI. And
Yes,
so,
absolutely.
you know, don't be afraid of it. Like embrace it. It's the only thing that's going to give you value in the marketplace. And I've had people who have left my organization
Mm,
and gotten jobs elsewhere, very, very good jobs elsewhere, simply because I gave them the opportunity to learn AI. And it's hard to find
mm.
those people in the marketplace today who are really competent. And so, I mean, that's my piece of advice to everybody is learn how to leverage whatever your talents are, whatever your craft is, just learn how to leverage it with AI in whatever way you can. And you will be more successful in the next 5 years, guaranteed.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you so much, Jesse, for those words. And yeah, I think that's where we will and today's podcast. Thank you all for watching, and thank you, Jesse, so much for joining us for the DataPedia show.
Hey,
Love to
thanks for
talk
having
to
me.
you, and this was a very insightful podcast. I We started off with no expectations of what we would talk about, but again, we end up talking about so many things, and got to learn a lot of things from you, Jesse. Thank you so much for joining.
Okay. Hey, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.